China has repeatedly clarified its position on the Greenland issue. International law based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter is the foundation of the current international order and must be upheld. We urge the American side to stop using the so-called China threat as a pretext for pursuing its own selfish interests.
A sharp warning from Beijing aimed straight at Washington. China is pushing back hard against what it calls a dangerous narrative unfolding in the Arctic. Stop playing the China threat card. That was the message from China's foreign ministry after the United States once again linked Beijing to growing tensions over Greenland. Speaking at a press briefing in Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gui Jiakun accused Washington of using fear as a political tool. Quote, "We urge the U.S. to stop using the so-called China threat as a pretext for seeking selfish gains." The rebuke comes just days after U.S. President Donald Trump reignited controversy with a lengthy social media post, arguing that the United States needs control of Greenland to counter what he described as Chinese and Russian threats in the Arctic. But China says that logic doesn't hold, and that international law, not power politics, must prevail. China insists it has been clear repeatedly about its position on Greenland.
The report that was mentioned once again clearly shows that China's enormous market represents a significant global opportunity. Strategically positioning oneself in China means gaining a crucial early advantage, and investing in China will undoubtedly bring substantial returns. The success stories of American businesses in China demonstrate that cooperation between the two countries is mutually beneficial, promoting stable, healthy, and sustainable development of China-US relations, which serves the common interests of both sides. This year is the inaugural year of the 15th five-year plan. China's economy is poised for takeoff with dynamic upgrading and will continue to provide the global economy with a stable engine, an oasis of growth, and a cradle of innovation. We extend a warm welcome to enterprises from all countries, including American companies, to seize the comprehensive list of opportunities presented by China's high-quality development and to jointly partake in the immense super dividends of its trillion-dollar market. The Chinese government places great importance on the safety and security of its citizens abroad. Over a period of time, China has been actively cooperating with Cambodia to crack down on cross-border telecom and online fraud and has achieved significant results. The Chinese embassy in Cambodia is actively maintaining communication and coordination with the Cambodian side. And is carrying out all relevant work. A spokesperson for the Philippine Coast Guard maliciously spread false information concerning China, wantonly smearing China's image. The Chinese side expresses strong condemnation for this and has already lodged a strong protest with the Philippines. Some in the Philippine military, for personal political gain, have repeatedly made outrageous and absurd remarks, habitually inciting confrontation. This behavior is despicable. We issue a solemn warning to those concerned in the Philippines to immediately cease their provocative actions. They must stop twisting the truth and confusing right from wrong. Otherwise, they will inevitably face severe consequences for their behavior. We have noted the relevant reports. China has consistently held the view that the concept of national security should not be overstretched. China has repeatedly clarified its position on the Greenland issue. International law based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter is the foundation of the current international order and must be upheld. We urge the American side to stop using the so-called China threat as a pretext for pursuing its own selfish interests.
A striking statement from Moscow, and a fresh twist in the growing Greenland controversy. The Kremlin says U.S. President Donald Trump would go down in world history if the United States were to take control of Greenland. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said it was hard to disagree with international experts who believe such a move would be historic. Peskov stressed he was not judging whether the step would be good or bad, only stating what he described as a fact. President Trump has repeatedly insisted he will settle for nothing less than ownership of Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark. He has warned that if the United States does not take control, Russia or China eventually will. Asked to respond to claims of a Russian threat, Peskov said there has been a flood of what he called disturbing information in recent days, but the Kremlin would not comment on any alleged Russian designs on Greenland. Peskov added that it is possible, in his words, to abstract from questions of legality or international law and focus purely on historical impact. According to those experts, he said, resolving the issue of Greenland's incorporation would place Trump not only in U.S. history, but in world history.
Trump has stated his intention to eliminate an alleged Russian threat to Greenland, claiming that Denmark has not taken any steps to address this issue. Could you please clarify if the Kremlin understands what specific threat Trump is actually referring to? How does Moscow assess this situation?
Well, overall, in recent days, there's been a lot. Such disturbing information is coming in. Of course, we are very closely observing everything that is happening, analyzing these events. As for our plans concerning Denmark and Greenland, I'll leave that without comment. Here, one can probably even abstract away from whether it's good or bad, what corresponds, whether it conforms to the parameters of international law or does not. However, there are international experts who believe that by resolving the Greenland issue, Trump will certainly go down in history, and not only in the history of the United States, but also in world history. And I'm repeating it again, without any discussion, whether it is good or bad. It's genuinely difficult to disagree with these experts.
Denmark and Greenland, however, have firmly rejected the idea. Both leaders have insisted the island is not for sale and does not want to become part of the United States. Russia's foreign ministry has also weighed in, calling it unacceptable for Western powers to repeatedly claim that Russia or China threaten Greenland. Moscow argues the dispute exposes what it calls double standards and a crisis that challenges the West's moral superiority. On Saturday, Trump demanded a deal to buy Greenland, saying on social media that otherwise he would slap tariffs on a group of European nations, starting with 10% in February, then ramping up to 25% in June. Sunday, ambassadors across the 27-nation bloc met in Brussels to take stock of the situation. While those were just preliminary talks, they made a few things clear. Officials would rather negotiate than retaliate, for one. But they are also committed to protecting Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark, from being bought or taken over if that is not what its people want.
In my view, there are 3 points. The first, the existing customs agreement with the US, which was supposed to be approved this week by the European Parliament, is on hold. The second point is that we have European tariffs on imports from the United States, which are currently suspended until the 6th of February. These tariffs could potentially come into full effect. And thirdly, I also want to emphasize that there is a legally established European toolbox outlining how we can respond to economic blackmail with very impactful and sensitive measures. And we should now examine the use of these measures and resolve them immediately. But we are constantly experiencing new provocations. We are constantly experiencing a new confrontation that President Trump is seeking. And here we Europeans must make it absolutely clear that the limit has been reached. All of this demonstrates the profound period of upheaval we are currently experiencing. For me, the logical consequence is very clear. We must strengthen Europe and become much, much faster than we are today. And it is precisely in this spirit that our meeting takes place today. European sovereignty has the highest priority for us in the Franco-German relationship, and we will discuss this today on 3. What has been done up to now, but it is a serious situation, and you asked if the transatlantic relationship would come to an end because of it. No, absolutely not. And I want to emphasize again here what I've always been saying. The USA is more than just Donald Trump, and I'm seeing very encouraging signs from Democratic politicians, but also from Republicans who are saying that is not the path we want to take. So there are many.
You know this, but I say it, I repeat it. We are in full solidarity with the Kingdom of Denmark and the Greenlandic people. The principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected. Lars has spoken about blackmail. I'm also calling it blackmail between allies who have been together for 250 years, blackmail between friends. This is obviously not acceptable. And to my knowledge, it is the very first time that an economic instrument, specifically tariffs, which, as you well know, we don't necessarily hold in very high regard, are being utilized for geopolitical reasons, especially when directed at both adversaries and friends alike. This is obviously unacceptable. We, in Europe and the European Union, must do everything in the coming days to both clearly affirm our capacity for reaction, assert our strength, but also ensure that we can. I was going to say that we should lower the pressure and de-escalate rather than escalate. That is the entire objective for the coming days. They will obviously be very important. It begins with the European Summit on Thursday. We'll also have the opportunity to discuss it within the G7 finance framework.
As rhetoric sharpens and Arctic tensions rise, Greenland is now at the center of a geopolitical contest with global consequences.